Yaskawa has the highest function digital interfaces to major power source brands. We have designed the interfaces to allow users to access setup and manage higher level process information from the robot teach pendant. This is in addition to the meat and potatoes weld control functions used to perform welds in the robot program. The Universal Weldcom Interface, or UWI, is a new weld interface platform for the YRC 1000 controller. Let's review operation with the Miller Auto-Continuum.
The jobs look the same with arc-on commands. A new function is the process selection key. So I hit process selection. It brings up processes specified for the program locations in the welder. You can set these, and let me go down. There's 8 programs. I'll go ahead and select number 8. Gives me all the different processes in there in the welder. So let me narrow this down a little bit with these filter fields. I'll tell it I have 045 wire. Hit enter. Use the pull down to select the material type. I'm using steel. And then finally the gas mixture that you have. I'm using 9010, which is the new robot gas kind of standard. You'll see on the field here, it gives a variety of different modes for that combination. And I can select one. Let's pick MIG. You'll see up in the top screen it says MIG. And I'm setting this into process number 8. You can see that's actually identical to what was set in 7. If I close out of this menu, prompts me if I want to save the changes. And I'll say yes. So right now you can tell it didn't seem to change anything. But if I come over here to my program and I can direct open my arc-on arc-start file number 7, and you can see in the upper right, this is file number 7. It's blank and it's asking for process selection. So if I go specify a process, I can see of the 8 programs, I'll go pick the program 8 that I just defined. Select that. And you can see it populated in there. This is number 8. You can add a comment field if you like. But basically, once that process is specified, if I go to my conditions, you'll see these are now reading out wire feed speed, voltage, inductance, and slope. These are parameters in Miller terminology associated with the MIG process. And as I cursor through here, the range updates in the bottom field. There's questions on what some of these settings are. We have a help menu in the lower right that brings up what that is and determines in the sequence where this function or setting is going to take effect. So this is the main condition that occurs after the starting condition. Simply push the button at the top to return to the arc start. If you want starting parameters, you simply enable the starting parameters, and now you see you have a variety of pause time at the start. If you have a large puddle to build up, that's fine. If you want to slope parameters, you can do that. You can specify a distance that you would like to slope those over at the start. And you have independent settings for the starting condition that might be reduced to get build up, or might be hotter if you're using aluminum. Again, if I go look at these, the help icon highlights where we are in the sequence. These are startings, and you have timers and distances that apply. So the UWI interface is ideal for synchronizing your welding parameters with robot motion. So these are starting conditions. If I go look at strike parameters, these set the run-in speeds at the start of the weld before the arc is initiated. So this can help control arc stability at the start. Dynamic start is a function that we had with our older function called hyperstart. It is basically a flying arc start. You can specify you want to use it, and you specify a time that would be the maximum time that it will travel, and if it doesn't see an arc in that period, it will alarm. This can save cycle time because the robot does not hesitate or pause at the start. Normal reaction with this disabled is the robot will go initiate the weld and wait for the welder to give it an arc established signal to travel. So with these settings, you can see, okay, I can go set these settings, change them. Have other options here too. We have retry function, restart function. The arc monitoring zone is in there. This is really just when does it see the arc established relative to positioning. Position zone, these are all functions that we had before in our standard interface and have simply been reapplied. If you're doing the weld path correction, this is something you can put in the start file. If you want to bump or adjust points at the start, this is global, so you can put in an offset relative to the joint line. And it will simply shift those points without a shift instruction. It applies to this globally, wherever this arc command is used. And again, if you're wondering what does this do, why, you have a screen that tells you the range. It's somewhat limited, meant to be just a few millimeters for stamp parts, variation, or things like that. The system is password protected, so that right now, up in the upper corner, I am in management mode. If I come to my security and go to a lower level, when I come back into my job and I direct open, I can see these fields, but you'll see they're grayed and I cannot enter or change values. And you see on the lower icon, they're edit protected. So dudes can't come in and jack with your settings. Customers say they like that feature. Actually, editing mode also has rights to change data. That's settable by parameter. Actually, I had the wrong password. Now I'm in management mode. So let's go back to our job, and we set that for arc start file 7. Let's go look at arc off file 7. If I direct open, again, I need to specify a process. I'll use number 7. And again, I have the same units here. For crater condition, I might want to reduce my parameters. And these are default values that appear. I have a dwell time of 0.2 of a second. Again, if I'm like, what do these parameters do? Look at the field, and the icon tells. This is a pause command. It's done at the end. The arc is still on, and it will crater out. I have finish condition, and finish condition we struggle between burn back or other things. If I edit this, it's a secondary setting that I can specify. for the finish condition. So you can see in the icon, it highlights, hey, you have your crater condition and then a secondary finish condition. Some welders may require it. The Miller actually has their sharp arc feature, so they can handle the finish condition very well, and this is often not needed, so you simply disable it. You can add post-purge. In the start file, you also had a pre-purge condition. Under other options, you have a zone on how close you want to come to the program point for this. Wire stick check. And again, this kind of shows how the touch circuit is closed. We use touch sense to detect if the wire's stuck at the end. So that's real handy, except the key function for this is, let's go look at changing the process. So if I go change this to a different one, let's say number 5. Process number 5 is RMD. I come look at my condition settings here. You'll see I'm now changed units. I have wire feed speed. I have arc length or trim at 50, and that's a percentage. 50 is the nominal value. You can go up or down to trim your arc length. Previously, we used a voltage setting, and you had to double it and do math in your head. Now, it's right there, and you can enter the number directly if you want a little bit more or a little bit less. You also have the added feature for arc control in the case of Synergic programs. You can see the range is 1 to 50 with nominal at 25. And again, these tell you where you're at. So very handy that these files now adjust to the units in the particular welder. But what if I want to do the arc on just to show these files? That was number 7. I can go in and hit in 1, file 1. It's using process 5, my main conditions, and if I shift and hit my page key, you'll see I can go up to 1,000. And you can tell what's set in each one. But I don't want to use files. What if I want to have my parameters set right here? This is unique to the UWI interface, and we've added this custom key. Custom key, you can see, gives you units down there, and it's according to the process. So I have process 1 displayed, and I can go enter a wire feed speed. I can enter a voltage as that number, inductance, or slope. You can use them or not use them. If I go up here and change the process and select process number 5, magically the numbers change and update according to what's in that process. Cool, huh? So now I'll put in my 50, and I'm not going to even use an arc control. When I hit enter, it brings me over to additional parameters that I can set. I can have a timer at the beginning, specify that for 0.1 seconds at the start. I can set the speed as a tag in my program, in which case it'll use that speed. I can define by parameter whether to use the arc file speed or the program speed in the job. You can also specify if you want to use retry or replay mode. Once you enter these parameters, and there's two screens, one is the custom. I go back and forth here. There's my setting, there's my custom. You can see down below the tag. This is all updated. And if I hit modify, it updates that instruction. So now this inline tag is something that we couldn't use with all power source, and it is now supported with the custom tags unique to each welder, not just each welder, but each process. Likewise with the arc off, I can go in, specify a custom tag, specify the process I want, and you can see I got wire feed speed, which is pretty much universal for the Miller. Specify a voltage. Inductance or slope, and again, if I hit there, now on the arc end, I have custom things. I can add a timer, or I can tell it I want the anti-sticking function. And again, if I enter this and just simply do modify record, that gets updated. So now I have inline tags. Inline tags, when you save jobs or load jobs, the settings will be in this instruction. You can use different settings for different weld locations on a part. However, if you change it in one place, it won't change it others, and it's unique. The global parameters, most people use arc start files because you can use the same file in multiple locations that might have that joint type. Again, it's a preference.
The UWI uses the process number and the arc instructions to present the user the appropriate settings for that process. It also calls the proper process when executing the weld command. This eliminates the need for use of macro jobs in the past. But can it switch processes while welding?
Let's take a moment to look at a function called dual pulse. In this case, we're using the Miller Auto-Continuum. If I come to my arc on instruction and hit direct open, I'm using arc start file 3, and I can see here under 3, I'm specifying AccuPulse. My parameters are 225, 70, which is fairly high for the trim, and arc control at 25. I'm not using starting conditions. Under other process, I'll come down, and I'm alternating with my dual pulse enabled. I'm using the alternate file 6 with a duration of 0.2 on my primary. And my arc start file number 6 will be 0.7 seconds. What is file 6? If you look at the top right corner, you'll see I'm displaying file 3. I simply page over to number 6. This is arc start file 6. I can go look at the process as MIG. So I'm changing between AccuPulse and MIG. And here, no starting conditions, but here for my welding conditions. Note the unit's changed. I have wire feed speed of 60, voltage of 13, inductance of 70, and a slope of 50. very low settings, and that's to do the high-low and get distinct lines with steel. So with that, let me hit my direct open, instantly close that. I'm just going to put it in play, hit servo on, and let's start running this weld.
UWI's dual pulse can provide TIG-like cosmetics on steel, but is more pronounced on aluminum. Nice. Is that all you got? No. UWI integration allows the use of a standard function called graphic arc monitor.
Graphic arc monitor is simply a display that shows a multiple of parameters like your speed, your weld feedback settings, as well as torch angles, travel angles, things like that. If we start this and begin to weld, we have a dual pulse set up. You can see the welding values with the pulsing current and voltage are highlighted on the graphic arc monitor display. This is not setting limits, but is a nicer display. If you would like it to save it to a USB device, you can do that. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Let's close that. Let's go to arc welding. Let's look at our other function, and that is in teach mode, Miller setup screen. Miller setup screen lets us go out and search the IP of the welder. And you can assign this, particularly if you have multiple welders on the system, you can assign it to each one. You specify the things, whether you want to lock or unlock the front panel. And then these are welding airs. You can enable or disable airs according to this. Can also come in and do my viewer log. So one of the things that is difficult for someone like me, who is used to volt-ohm meters, is what happens when things don't work right with my stupid Ethernet connection. The welding log will keep track of things that are changed, be it weld settings, and that can be also exported, so it will aid in diagnostics. That can be emailed. Weaving, new on the YRC as a standard function, is elliptical weave.